Welcome back to the next episode of Empower Podcast. I have a wonderful guest with me now. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Christine Kearns.
Nice to meet you, Christine. So, what I would like for you to do, if you feel able, is tell us a little bit about. So, when I first met you a few years ago now, you have sat in my mind as such an incredible woman because you were introduced as a lady who had experienced quite significant health conditions, and you had gone on a recovery journey quite holistically yourself. So if you agree, I would love you to tell your story from there.
Well, thank you. You're making me cry already. It's funny because it was such a long time ago, but it's very much part of the here and now, obviously, of why I do the work that I do. So back in 2020, I was training to be a professional dancer. I was very healthy, happy. The world was ahead of me, so to speak. And I had a flare in my knee. So my joints swollen, it was very, very fat. And I had some pain in my feet as well. So various doctor investigations and stuff, I thought I had an injury because I was at stage school and maybe done something with my body. But it was over a Christmas working in Next in retail in Liverpool that I had some swelling, and it was like, wow, this doesn't look good. So I went off to the doctor. I was in A&E on Christmas Eve. Couldn't walk, significant pain and swelling, like I can't even explain. When I got out of bed, it was like putting my feet on hot glass or knives right through the metatarsal bar, so underneath your phalanges that stick out at the bottom there. So I had various investigations, went to my GP, and I was lucky at the time because at the time he was Liverpool Football Club's doctor,
Right.
Dr. Waller. And so he knew a lot about sport injury, and, you know, as I said, it was my life, was what I did. And he gave me some steroid injections. We didn't know what was wrong, that helped me. And then he said, we can't keep doing this. I'm going to have to refer you on. I want you to see a rheumatologist.
Right.
Okay. So we went to a rheumatologist in Rodney Street in Liverpool, and he did not know even then. There was some swelling, there was some pain. Oh, sorry, we went to see a foot specialist first because the pain was so bad in my feet, I couldn't stand up. And it was on the right side, so it was the right foot, the right knee. And like I said, I was limping. You know, I couldn't bend the knee at all. And I was so very young, couldn't fit and healthy. And he said, we don't need to see a foot specialist, we need a rheumatologist. And I was like, sorry, what?
Right.
So off I went to this rheumatologist.
And you were how old at the time?
20.
Right.
20.
Wow.
It was just approaching millennium year, so you're talking 24 years. Because I'm 44 now. So I went to see this guy, and he gave me the news that I had a freak autoimmune or a freak illness. I remember him saying that as a freak kind of illness. Because when he did my inflammatory markers, I was borderline with arthritis.
Right.
Okay? So anyone who knows a lot about autoimmune and immuno conditions is our body can go and do strange things when our body is in disease.
And you'd not had this through your childhood?
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing at all. So my body was out of ease, and my body was telling me something had caused this inflammation in the right side of my body.
And sorry to step in there, but that's so important. The way you've just put that with your language, a lot of people don't realise that when you have a disease or anything to do with inflammation in the body, that it is a dis-ease of, you know, your physicality. So the way you've just put that then is so easily absorbed by people. When we don't, if we haven't experienced that, we wouldn't think of it in that way.
Exactly, and I think that's the journey I went on with that kind of the impact of those words. Okay, we don't know what's happening. You've got this kind of freak thing. I remember him saying like this freak thing. And for me, it was a challenge. I'm a competitive person. It's like, right, this is a challenge. We're going to not worry about this. Okay. It's like the positive mindset.
Yeah.
And it's that competitive part of myself, which later on I had trauma. Later on I had the reality of it hitting me like a train that everything I'd ever worked for since the age of like 4 or 5, it ended. And not only could I not dance, I was potentially going to be in a wheelchair because I was told by doctors if I didn't take the medications, I would be in a wheelchair within 5 years.
Really?
At the age of 20. So, tears. So I thought, right, well, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So off I went out, and I remember sitting in the doctor's surgery with all these people who were so in pain, fingers, joints, and I was the youngest
I was
person.
going to say that, were they all older?
I was the youngest person in that practice, and it was all very quiet. And it was in the hospitals. I think it was for exactly one of our wonderful hospitals. And I went and saw the nurses who were great. You go and do your blood work and you go. And the private doctor had said, come and see me in a practice. Because I went to this guy because it was my career, and we scraped together some money to go and get a prognosis because we didn't know what was happening. Yeah. And he said, come and see me in my clinic. And he put me behind a curtain, give me a cortisone injection, and I almost blacked out, and a wheelchair came round the corner. And I remember like almost talking to shout for my mum, but no words came out. It must have been the shock of the pain.
Right.
And they wheeled me out of there and threw a new drug at me, which was called sulfasalazine at the time. And they were going to try this medication. I was told, you know, one a day, and then it'd reach up to 4 a day, and all of this. And we still didn't have like a formal diagnosis, but we were going to try this to see if we could kind of aggressively hit this thing. Right. Anyway, the next time, so I went back to college, and I was the tape girl, so I was watching all the dances every day in the studio and just playing the music. And this was wrecking havoc with my mental health, but I was still so determined.
And the pain was still
Pain was horrific.
Right.
If you say 1 to 10, you're talking probably a scale of 11.
Wow. Just
to get dressed some days.
And you were typically a healthy body. Right, okay, it was just...
So this kind of body, this swelling, so for me it was the right side of the body, it was the right foot, and then it was the right knee.
Right.
So we got the fluid drained off, and my GP was fabulous, you know, and he kept, like I said, the pep talk of, we can't really keep doing this.
Yeah.
And he'd give me the chat, and he'd work with footballers and stuff, so we knew this was serious, and I was like, He said, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because he said, I can't keep injecting just to walk. I was like, well, you're going to have to.
Because you've been a dancer for so long, does it even comprehend?
It's funny, I was coming back now because I can kind of sit myself in that room as that person who was like 19.
Yeah.
And then it's like, actually, some people were saying you might be able to have children or hold your children and do this because the joints were just, everything was just falling, everything was breaking down.
Yeah.
So I was like, we're not going to talk about that today. And he was like, we're going to refer you to a team of people and you're going to be great.
Yeah.
I was like, just give me another needle, you know. And he's like, we can't do this, it's not safe. Very, very good doctor. Incredible man, lovely manner. Really saved me, essentially, because some people might have done things differently.
Yeah.
So he referred me over. Then I got this other guy come and see me, give me a cortisone. Didn't explain it very well. And I went out with some pills in a wheelchair thinking, wow, this is my life. And I was like, this can't be my story. So I went home.
Doesn't make any sense.
Didn't make sense. I was dizzy. Then the medications gave me chronic headaches, fatigue. I felt sick. I was having palpitations, hot flushes. It wasn't nice. So what happened then was I found a homeopath.
Okay.
And my friend was having some treatment. She had ME and she was not finding, she's very well now. And she said, come and see this lady, Hilary Hampel in Crosby. Come and find this woman. She's amazing. Now, I was doing anything to get back to my career.
Yeah, of course.
At the time.
That was your passion and that was your life.
So it was like, I'm doing that. So we go, and within 4 weeks of being on some homeopathic medicine and looking at a clean diet, right, and looking at the whole body as a whole person, I was able to walk up the stairs without pain in 4 weeks.
And had that ever been your lens of a world that you knew existed before this?
No. You know, you go to the doctors, you get sick, you go to the doctors. So this is where the power really began in terms of that empowerment piece of, okay, and she taught me, and she still works with me over 25 years this December, that the body needs the tools to get back in ease and get back in flow. Okay. And we just need to identify with those parts of ourselves that are out of balance. Yeah. And the whole person, so a holistic view of health is the whole person. So it's about what's in our mind, it's toxins that we're putting in our ears, who we're around, what we're eating, how we're walking, are we moving, and it's a whole thing. I used to talk to my body in the shower. My wrists were so painful. The heat of the shower used to just be able to let me sometimes even cut my food.
So over time, did it
Because it
go
went
to all of the
wrists,
different...
it moved around.
Right.
But like I said, I found the homeopathy and they started to work within 4 weeks. It was like, wow, what is this? Then she taught me about diet and nutrition and lifestyle. So I went on a clean diet. And I picked up a book in Waterstones and Bowl Street, and it was Curing Arthritis the Drug-Free Way.
Right.
And it had case studies of people who were my age now, 40s, 50s, who'd got off some of the earlier drugs, the methotrexates, the various other things, to be able to play golf and tennis. So there's these little, it was only a thin book, and I remember reading it and thinking, wow, these people are middle-aged,
Yeah.
okay?
Real people.
Real people sharing that, wow, they can now go on the golf course, they can play with their grandkids, or, you know, they've got their life back through taking away the autoimmune foods, the inflammatory foods. So this became a project. So it was like, right, okay, get rid of all that. Then I found an acupuncturist in Crosby. Then you fast forward to a time kind of after that where I got really interested in the theory because my body was healing and it was a miracle to me.
And at the same time, you're not only educating yourself, but you're learning about like your internal environment and what it needs.
So much. And it was an awareness of the power of the mind, the power of the body, and the power of not a placebo is the wrong word, but we can trust the physician. So Dr. Lissa Rankin in the States talks about the power of placebo and my medicine. And this is, you know, physics now. There are scientists that are proving about changing neurons in our brain. We know this from a trauma perspective, which I can still get triggers, hence that happened just then.
I absolutely love reading the literature, Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, on the psychological trauma and how that can manifest as disease, but also you've got like the Joe Dispenza. I'm reading a little bit more about what you were talking about then, where he's talking about quantum physics now backs up this evidence base to show that, you know, there's different frequencies and different energies, and there's so much more complexity to understanding our energy fields and the energy fields that we live in. It's mind blowing to me. It was so insightful to get that information,
and it's powerful stuff. And what I coach now, so I work as a somatic practitioner and health coach, you know, empowerment to women, and I've worked with a lot of men as well, where the body in motion, a body in movement, is a healthy, well body. If we think about that idea of keeping moving and moving the body, people think arthritis is an old people's disease. There are people in the States that I've worked with. So I worked with the Arthritis Foundation in Houston, Texas, when I lived overseas. And I met the most incredible women, and a young woman specifically, who used stem cells to heal.
Wow.
Okay, so my journey began in Liverpool as a dancer that used to practice my tap choreography and next on a Saturday, and had all these aspirations, okay? But there are young kids that are born with this immune compromised systems that can really have so much help. And I'm not saying for some people the drugs can work and they can complement, but I know I'm your poster girl that for me, working with food, movement, mindset, you know, biochemistry, we are all bio-individual. None of us are the same. So if me and you have an autoimmune disease, a body out of ease, if we just hold that, and we go to the same physician or practitioner, what is prescribed to you, whether that's a holistic modality or a medicine, which ultimately are from plants, okay? Your story with your chemistry will be so different from mine. So we all need that individual approach, and that's what's powerful now within holistic practice.
And that's quite difficult as well, because this is where I really resonate with you, because I also have an autoimmune condition, psoriatic arthritis. I have I am still at the point where I see the power of stress inflaming the body,
Yeah.
the power of cultivating a healthier environment internally. And I have tried to change my lifestyle to lean more towards support and not having to have medical intervention. But unfortunately for me, whether it's a lack of ability or education or commitment, I'm not sure. But my journey is still where I'm at the point of having to have immunosuppressants because my autoimmune condition was 70% body coverage of psoriasis and arthritis. So having that from a very young age up until 40, for me, I just couldn't. This is why I admire you so much, because you have done that internal work, and I have some of that knowledge on what to do. But there's either, I don't know if it's a cultural mindset within me individually where I haven't quite shifted to, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm better than I used to be.
Yeah.
But my mindset still isn't there where I will give myself that level of commitment.
It's a process,
Right.
for sure, and it's something that we always, because I sometimes can have setbacks where, I will be off course with some of these disciplines because life happens.
Yeah.
But what you said there was so important about kind of stress.
Yeah.
So I was leading into thinking about this earlier when we were talking about my journey to the doctors.
Right.
I was still trying to be an 18 to 20-year-old, young, kind of full of fun, out with my friends, going out drinking. I was abusing my body without realising.
Right.
Okay? We're all being that age where we go out drinking and dancing and being a student and doing. I went to a full-time vocational college, but on a Wednesday and Friday, we went out dancing. We did our thing. Now, for some people, their bodies can handle that.
Yeah.
But for mine, it was struggling. For a body with arthritis,
Yeah.
alcohol isn't your friend. It can be if you drink in small dosages. That's not to say I was absolutely leathering it. But chocolate bars, no.
To the sugar,
Red
and the
wine,
alcohol, the inflammatory
inflammatory
properties.
foods,
Yeah.
so you're young, you want to go out, you want to have a great time. That's not to say that you shouldn't, because you're 18 to 20, 21.
Yeah.
And my homeopath said, we're not saying not drinking, but let's look at gin and tonic. Let's look at, before gins were trendy,
So the sources of the quality of what you're putting in as well.
botanicals.
Right.
Yeah. I can drink Prosecco and be absolutely fine,
Yeah.
which is a fun thing. What
Yeah.
girl doesn't love Prosecco?
Yeah.
Especially us Scousers, we all love Prosecco.
Absolutely.
But, it's a case of, if I drink a glass of wine,
Yeah.
I drink 2 glasses of wine, my joints tell me
Yeah.
off.
Isn't
it's
that
the
interesting
pain.
as well, like what you actually put into
Acidity.
your body? Yeah, see,
Toxic
I love
acidity.
I've noticed the older I get, the more trauma and stress and whatever builds up in this body and what I'm able to process and what stays stored. I'm more and more sensitive to sugar, to
Yeah.
alcohol, to poorer qualities of what is going into my body. Even quality of friendships and, environments that I'm in, I have to be really conscious of what's the quality to suit my health needs.
Yeah.
Because my health has become so sensitive that I have to really choose carefully. And if I don't, then I've got the mindset to have to know, well, you didn't choose that when you knew what would work for you. So it's kind of like, well, you chose that, you've got the repercussions of it the next day.
Well, this is the power of the this is the exciting part about the energy work that we do. Okay, so I've brought some little books. Okay,
I can't wait for you to talk about those.
3 books, and the only reason I've brought these books is because these are 3 people that have really influenced the work that I do, and I'm going to talk about Jean Houston first.
Okay.
So I met Jean in a conference in Houston, Texas, back in 2015. Okay, and she was a guest at one of these big gospel churches that brought in Alanya Van Zant, I think her name is, who's like Oprah's best mate, and this other guy who's like a gospel church guy. It was amazing. It was an inspirational chat with 3 or 4 motivational speakers in a church for a few hours on a Sunday.
Wow.
Okay, and Jean was there, and I didn't know anything about Jean Houston, I've got to be honest, right? And Jean writes this book, The Wizard of Us. Okay. And The Wizard of Us is basically taking the Wizard of Oz and talking about when we walk our path.
Wow.
In our journey and how those people. So she says, answer to the call to transform yourself and the world. The beloved story of the Wizard of Oz has the power to reveal the hero's journey that awaits us all. So the hero's journey is about who we meet on that lens of life, who we discover and who those people are that influence us. But truly that the magic is within and the wizard within us all.
So like you're the lived expert inside your own experiences.
Of your own experience. And then,
Right.
of course, the people who know about the Wizard of Oz, you know, in terms, and I know obviously Wicked's big now and such,
Yeah.
which that's complete coincidence that I picked this book up. I genuinely wasn't trying to kind of lean towards this. But we know that there is myths within that story, and to not get in the culture and the detail about the political landscape of that very famous story, which I'm not sure you know, but it's interesting for listeners. Google it, because it talks about politics and all of these wonderful stuff, that actually we are all kind of visionary leaders if we stay true to our stories, okay? Our stories. What happens in life is we mask our stories, okay? And we can be disempowered because certain people can come in our life and influence our stories.
Distractions, you lose
Distractions,
focus.
but also inspirational people who can build that journey within us and help us
And give us
walk
that
our path.
energy. Yeah.
Walk our path. So she just did the most. She's just stunning, and she wrote this book, and I was blown away by just her honesty and the interesting way she personifies those characters within that tale and makes it so applicable to us all in such a different way that I'd ever heard before.
So this one here.
So this is Jean Houston.
I noticed you got Brené Brown there.
Brené leads back to this. So I follow on to Brené. So I go to Houston, Texas in 2013 with my now husband, who's a scientist. By complete coincidence, this is the magic of manifesting. I did a master's degree in somatic experience, which was a theatrical course in Manchester Met from Liverpool about Liverpool's story. And it was, if the city was a road movie, this sounds mad, stay with it. If the city was the journey of Liverpool, like we have Liverpool to America that links through a river. Okay, so the Cunard ships used to leave and go and gather information and bring it back, which infused our culture. So you talk about the Beatles and all that, which very much was ingrained in my childhood as a dancer with twist and shout, and my mum and dad were ballroom and Latin dancers. I used to compete when I was 10 and 11 all around Blackpool and York. My mum would go to a bus stop with a carrier bag and take me to my dance classes in Crosby, and then we would travel all around the UK at weekends and compete. When I was a younger, from the age of 9 till I was right up to my 20s. But I go to America, and prior to going to that, I'm at university studying theatre arts in a contemporary performance course, not realising that was the foundation of my work as a somatic practitioner. So one of my lecturers, Dr. Anna Fenimore, who's got a PhD in all this somatic experience, we did a study on soma-aesthetic experience, which basically just means the lived experience of the arts.
Right.
Okay? And my thesis was all about why we're moved by performance. Why is it when we go to a musical we feel good? What is it that we read about high art kind of intertextual kind of interesting thing? But for me, it was about moving and moving the body and moving people. The emotion in moving, the body in motion that keeps us free of disease. When a body is in dancing, or it's sitting and it's joining in, or it's at home watching Britain's Got Talent or whatever, and you enjoy, your body is free of disease because you are in joy.
Right. Okay.
There is no limiting beliefs on your body. Your body is free to move without all that programming that keeps us stagnant, all those stresses that can create pathways of dis-ease in our minds that create then and manifest
So is
within
that
our
like
body.
when you say when you're in joy, is that also like more of a relaxing environment?
Release.
When you're in a happier
Happier state.